And what is somebody trying to do with us? They've attacked us using methods by another means on multiple fronts. When we took down the Soviet Union, we did it on multiple fronts. One of them was we ran the price of oil down through our various partners so low, their biggest source of revenue was oil, that we collapsed their economy.
Right.
Took all of their funds away. Then we went after them on the religious issues up there in the satellite states, and where they were being, extremely over the top on the way they ran their people on the religious issues, Jews, Catholics, Christians, the whole schmear. What was, portrayed as the trade unions, which was also true. There was a big issue there. Like Walesa and that whole group of people up there in Poland. In fact, I just got to spend time with a doctor who grew up in Poland during that era and now is a pediatrician, just moved down to Florida from New York. Just a great person. We were talking about that whole era and what it was like. And so on the religious thing, the people were undermined from the inside. And there was a few other things that were done, but with the Afghanistan situation and getting them to throw arms and people into a war that could never win, and us supplying stuff surreptitiously that really taxed them again. And then finally, the ruble situation, and nobody counterfeited anybody's rubles. They just happened to have some generals that were greedy and sent rubles outside the country for hard currency such as dollars, marks, yen, bola, etc. And then when there wasn't money to buy rubles anymore, well, we just sent rubles back. It was their rubles. Okay, we didn't do anything wrong. We just sent their rubles back. Kaboom!
Masterful. You always provide amazing insights.
Oh my
so
God.
The military side is very, very amazing because
well,
you're coming in and say some stuff. So I can give you my background. I've been looking at the things that have been happening with Mr. Biden, and it doesn't match up like you're saying as far as like there's no Air Force One and all these different things. He doesn't have a protection detail. I have been part of protection details a lot, and I can tell you that's a big red flag that he doesn't have one. So you just spelled it all out masterfully. Thank you.
Well, and then I was having my cookie and it's really good.
Oh yeah, good. Glad to talk a little bit so you get that in. I know you like to run.
I didn't get to eat today, and I had to have a little bite to eat after.
Good.
You don't want me to fall over.
Get the blood sugar pass out.
Somebody made me a very nice cookie, a keto cookie, by the way.
Sweet.
So
very good.
But think about this, Jaco. You've got a situation where Biden's people, Biden himself, they've got to get control, rein this in somehow. There's ample evidence that a component of the Secret Service and a component of the military have not agreed to and backed Biden as the president of the United States, functionally. Now, where people have to think about this, the president of the United States supervises, manages, he's the executive, like the CEO of a corporation, the day-to-day operations of the various government agencies, internal policing, FBI, Justice Department, the Treasury stuff, the banking, things like that, how the states are administering laws and what federal money is going to go to support which programs and what, we as a nation need to work together and coordinate the states and the senators and everybody else to do whatever to work together to get something done. Okay. And so he's the CEO sitting at the head of the board table trying to figure this stuff out. That's not the same as commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief is head of the military. Different hat, So you take one hat off and you put the other one off if the country's under attack or whatever. Michael, the country is under a digital attack, war by another means, and have been the whole event leading up to the 11th re-election. And by the way, just like when we did what we did, think of what America's been under attack with. Multiple things. It's a big country. There's a lot going on. You're not going to knock it down with just one little thing. So what else you got cooking? COVID. That's big. It doesn't turn the world on its ear. The economic side as a result of that, and the political side. You know, the chaos, the not knowing what's going on. Let me tell you one other thing. The other day, and you've probably seen it. In fact, I did a T-shirt, put it on my 107 Daily over there for people to get just for fun. And it was Strategic Air Command. They have a communication system. So what happened was in this communication system, one of the guys had one of the devices, supposedly went home with it. It's, you know, a classified device, and he sets it on the counter, and his little kid gets the device and he's punching in random letters and numbers in the device. Okay. So I don't know, it could have been, it could have been Biden. Okay. Random numbers going and think, oh, yeah, does this launch anything? STRATCOM, hello? Anybody over there? Okay. What about this button? Huh? You know, I can't find a place to put my key. This is the Toys R Us key. It's the purple one. Oh, yeah, okay, hold on. Which one's yo?
You're supposed to get pudding today. Where is it?
So everybody in the world, all the other governments in the world, look, the Chinese, the Russians, the Israelis, the Germans, the Brits, the fucking Brits, they're all watching everything that happens. So here, Strategic Air Command, our nuclear forces, over their open line that everybody gets to see, but it's still kind of a coded communication, comes this random group of letters. So some of the people watching this go, whoa, what's that all about? So they take the group of letters and they put it into these decoding tools, like somebody accidentally put an encoded message out over the open line. So they have these, you know, Toys R Us decoding tools that come up with the most obvious likely answer. And the first answer that comes out of the decoding tool, Q acquitted. That's the most likely answer. Q acquitted. Okay, half hour later, STRATCOM comes out. Oh, excuse me. We accidentally let somebody's kid play with the device and they punched those numbers. Ignore the man behind the curtain. Ignore what just happened. Nothing relevant. Okay, so now move forward. That got everybody's attention, paying attention to that. Okay, think about what happened next. Just like going up the stairs and he's tripping up the stairs, and then a few days later, now he's got to carry his suitcase up to show us all how good shape he's in. That little event over at STRATCOM got the whole world aware that, you know, STRATCOM was in the news and more people are paying attention. So the next thing that comes out a few days later was a advisory. And the advisory says, don't expect a linear response from an enemy who may feel threatened if they believe it's the only way to save as much life as possible and to protect their position. Now, most people read that as though, you know, Ukraine and everybody's pushing on the Russians. The Russians had this huge buildup, bigger than back in 2014. They had this huge buildup over there on the border of Russia. And Putin had, you know, brought everybody in. They're having this huge thing. You know, supposedly just a training exercise, but it's huge. What people didn't catch was this. It wasn't a warning that the Russians might nuke somebody if they felt threatened. They didn't feel threatened. We weren't doing anything. They're the ones doing stuff. Hello. U.S. forces are not coordinating and cooperating with the NATO forces right now at many levels. And there's this sense in various governments around the world, including over there with Putin, that maybe we aren't paying close enough attention. Maybe we're in a little turmoil, a little disarray here, because our general staff and flag officers might have a little bit of confusion going on, and there's no president. We might be a headless creature here. We might have been decapitated because our government's divided right now. So maybe this is a good time for a little adventure into the Ukraine. The real warning, you know, we're usually fairly predictable. It may not sound like we're that predictable, but the reality is, you know, we're not going to nuclear war lightly. We don't want to do that sort of thing. And so most people think of America, and we're fairly linear. Linear, just it's a smooth road up. It's a smooth, predictable road down. It might go up a little more or a little less, but it's, you know, it's fairly predictable. It's fairly linear. The STRATCOM communication was, do not expect a linear response. If you think that our forces are not going to be able to act, that the people that actually have the control to push the button, turn the key, will not act if they're actually for real pushed up against the wall, don't expect a linear response. We will use a tactical nuke, and it talks specifically about tactical nukes.
Wow.
If needed, if we're pushed. You know what that was? That was somebody getting a message to Putin and everybody else and the Chinese. We got stuff going on all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
You think you can mess with us right now because we're in a decapitated position and our president isn't actually got control of our military? Don't expect a linear response. You push us, we'll push back, and it won't be what you expect. Who's in control of the nuclear arsenal? What did Nancy want to do shortly after Biden entered the presidency? She said she wanted to pull control of the nuclear command forces under the direct authority of the Congress. Now, why would she want to do that at exactly that time? Is it because Biden was wasn't fully in control or couldn't be depended on, or a Harris might not be able to, or Michael, because they were trying to force the military's hand?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what was really going on? Because people in the upper reaches in the command of the nuclear forces, this upper strata, a very precise, specific strata of the military, commanding the nuclear arsenal and beyond, doesn't just end there, weren't under the control of Biden. And she was trying to come up with a legislative way to capture that control and force the hand of the people in the upper reaches of our military to hand over the keys.
She thought she might get somebody that's on the edge to come in and rescue that, and it didn't happen. So that's brilliant the way you put that out. Really.
Well, they thought that they could get the American people behind it, like it was somehow going to make us safer to have, you know, a couple hundred Congress people that can't agree whether or not to, you know, if you have a stream going down beside the sidewalk into the drain thing, is that a salmon spawning stream and we should regulate it and restrict fishing in the drainage ditches or something? You know, they can't figure that out. They can't decide whether, you know, they're going to spend, you know, 50 million or 500 billion on transgender studies, you know, for 4-year-olds. And you're going to get them in a time of war, you know, the Chinese or the Russians or somebody else is doing some horrible thing. well, I don't know if we should nuke them or not. I mean, they nuked Hawaii and LA, but I mean, that's not the whole country. I think it was an accident. And it might just be because they wanted to get some of the, trade lowered between those places or something, or increased. I don't know. They thought they were plowing ground. You can't get Congress to agree to that, and you're going to take the instantaneous control that is this hair trigger. The way the nuclear stuff has worked for a very long time is mutually assured destruction. You push the button and try to nuke us. We push the button and nuke you back. We both end up as losers. It's tic-tac-toe. Nobody wins. So you got this situation where all of a sudden Nancy's, the way we're going to fix this is we're going to get even more chaotic and confused, and the other side doesn't see an executive with will that's willing to do what has to be done in a critical moment. Where does that make sense anywhere in the world, especially the way that it's been played for a long time? That's a pretty big decision. You're not going to just turn it over in a few days with Nancy saying, yeah, we've got to take over this. There was other stuff going in the background. Where it counts, at the upper reaches, that upper strata of the military, they have not agreed that Biden was legally elected President of the United States, that they have not agreed that the foreign interference was not enough to change the outcome of the election. And so they did their own analysis, and it didn't start till January 20th, when Biden was sworn. Even though Congress and even though the courts said, no, he's president, they weren't so free with their decision-making. And fortunately for America, fortunately for the world, because President of the United States controls a lot of stuff, money and everything else. Commander-in-Chief sends troops and weapons and can push the button in the right situation. The whole world is on the line holding its breath for what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. The military did not agree to go along with the result of this Pearl Harbor, this digital Pearl Harbor in America. And remember, for example, Japan took the Philippines, and MacArthur had to yield and leave the country. And some of the things that happened in the Philippines, I mean, oh my gosh, I had a friend years ago that was, he passed away probably 25 years ago now, but he was there in the Philippines and became prisoner. Yeah. And it was beyond horrible.
Japan death march, yep.
Yeah, it was just beyond comprehension. And yet we had to march back over time, get control, consolidate our position, go back and get the Philippines back. If we lose within the Congress and the courts, we may have lost a lot of ground. Did we lose everything? And I would contend to you that that's the whole point. The military, even portions of the military, may have fallen under some convoluted, captured vote system, this digital Pearl Harbor against America, this war by another means. But fortunately, where it counts in the upper strata, within our last line of defense, the most critical one, where the officers are sworn, vetted, think in a much different way, they didn't concede. And so what's happening now is that pushback is now starting to come back. Okay, you lost the Philippines. Well, it's not permanent. We're going back yet. You lost some portion of America. Well, it may not be as permanent as they'd like to say. They're screaming bloody murder. Watch what's going on over there in Maricopa County. These people want to come in and try to lock it down, close us off from the rest of that data, not provide stuff still. There's now discussions to get a recount, even in Clark County, where it still hasn't been agreed to, but we're not done. So how long does that march take? What's going to go on in the meantime? What revelations from insiders and digital data actually can still come to bear? What stuff from the guys that were working right there inside that may have put little landmines in there, these guys going to step on? And I just had some of those discussions over the last week. Those guys are about to come out. You know, there's an interesting thing. May 11th, that's 5 times 11, 55. I've said many times, you know, 5 is the number of death to enemies and defense. That's why the Pentagon has 5 sides. It has an occult thing. 5 is the number of grace to God's people and redemption. It's silver, it's the cross, it's redeemed. We're coming up on a 5x5 moment. It'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these revelations. It's not over on a certain day. You know, let me ask you this. Okay. So a lot of people got all wound up, Michael. Let me ask you a question. When a president leaves office, is he still referred to as president, or is he now just another citizen, never referred to as president the rest of his life? He's just, you know, is Trump still president?
President for life.
President for life. That's right. Now Biden has been certified as president by the courts. Congress has agreed to this whole thing. So you got a president there, but you really have 2 presidents. It's just one is functionally over the corporation, the Fed side, the whatever. But if the military hasn't handed off, that's a different hat. That's commander in chief. So my question is Biden, while the courts and the Congress can say, he is commander in chief. He is commander in chief. He is. Look, he's got the keys. Pull the keys out. Biden, pull the keys out of your pocket now. Look at these. These are the Toys R Us keys we gave.
Toys R Us keys, yep.
Okay. Yeah, that one, he was chewing on that one. That one doesn't count. He's got big teeth. You know, usually those are made for like little kids where they gum it to death. Of course, he might be gumming it to death. I don't know. But, you know, it's just a little. Yeah, I think he was putting it in there. He's trying to turn it, and broke the key. But anyway, okay. So, is there some question if Biden is actually being accepted where it counts as commander-in-chief? And so now I come back to April 1st. You know, I did all these bets. So I was with one of my guys who's actually general staff. And, you know, his wife was like, well, I think it's time for you to pay off. And he tells her, he says, actually, I think he might have been right. That was the end of the discussion there. Okay. And the reason is,
honestly, I love it.
Yeah, the reason is, think about it. I also talked quite extensively for quite some time about dual presidency. Do we have a dual presidency situation where part of the country, part of the government in this divided government moment is saying that Biden's president, and another part of our government in this upper strata is saying Trump won, and he should be referred to respectfully as President Trump, whether you believe it or not. He is President Trump. He is President Trump, but is he still supposed to be the guy that's commander in chief? And at what point, if the military, think about this, if the military didn't agree that the election was pulled off without interference, so then they do their own internal investigation. That started on January 20th. That's the way the Military Code of Justice is written. They do an investigation. They determine what exactly happened. Was there foreign interference? They take the stuff that was accumulated from the Department of Homeland Security, but then they add the extra touch of their own military intelligence that isn't even allowed in those areas, because the Department of Homeland Security does not control the nuclear defenses. They don't have a Department of Homeland nuclear security, okay? And that area where those investigations are done and that data, that last line of defense, that did not come under the scrutiny and get in those reports. And the military goes back and looks at all the other military intelligence that they may have on a situation like this. And at the end of it, if they concluded that there was foreign interference and it was sufficient to change the outcome of the election, and that there's a treasonous, traitorous component of those offices that certified and validated the vote over at Congress and the courts, then the military doesn't just stand neutral endlessly. The way that the military code of justice is written, they're required to first secure the Constitution, the contract with the American people, and the Republic, the security of the states. Then, as quickly as safely, reasonably possible, they restore lawful civilian authority to the position of commander-in-chief, commander in charge of all military forces. Now think about that. That's not the same as calling him president. It's just for the sake of running the military machine to recapture ground that was stolen from us, to protect the Constitution and Republic, that they recognize a commander-in-chief of military forces. They don't put that person in the presidency. They just they're strictly, solely who's running the military. And we don't do it as a banana republic. We don't run our country with generals. We're not a South American operation. If we don't like the way things go, a bunch of generals take over and they run the country. Or some one general comes in and becomes the guy that runs the country. The Military Code of Justice says that they have to pick that person that's the representative constitutionally of the military forces. So in this situation, think about this, Michael. If you have forensic data that shows in this digital Pearl Harbor that another government or group of governments or businesses or some James Bondsonian mastermind had cooked the election and stolen it and put somebody else in there as a Manchurian candidate. Could be a clone, could be, it could be computer generated at this point in time. We have, TV screen stuff that can generate images. You wouldn't know if you're seeing the real thing or not, okay? At some advanced time, now or some point in the future, you might not even see anything that's real anywhere. Because you trust what's on the TV, so they generate any image they want, show it to you. You wouldn't know if it's actually Biden or, just a computer generated model. So if the military doesn't believe that whoever's at the suitcase, whoever's at the other end is real or is the correct, true elected representative of the American people, and if they think that they can come up forensically with the correct data that proves who is the elected person that the American people voted, then they would turn around and recognize that. Might have taken some time, but that's what they would do. That's what the Code of Justice says. But they don't just run it. They find that person. If they couldn't unscramble the egg, then they would turn around maybe and have to supervise a revote. It might be just in those places where the vote was most severely screwed up, maybe those 5 or 6 states where they did this huge vote fraud on the ballots and all that, if that was the case on the digital vote. But that would be kind of difficult. You'd probably have to do the whole country. But if you know what the outcome of the vote actually was before it was cooked, before the data was sent up through the satellite systems, downloaded, changed, and sent back through, downloaded back here on the vote machines and turned around. If you knew what it was before it was cooked, why would you do a revote? If you've got the forensic data and you've got the eyewitnesses, the people who were hands-on, no, it would be another crime to then force the country to go through a revote. Remember, while all this is going on, remember what happened in the Soviet Union that doesn't exist anymore because we killed it, shot it dead on a doornail? When they were in disarray, when their economy was toast, when the ruble was dropping in value, dropped 40% in a matter of months in the black market, when their leaders were getting accosted by their people because they just wanted to frankly feed their families. They were starving to death.
Yep.
And their industry wouldn't work. You couldn't build a toaster because you couldn't find the toaster cord. Oh, it's on a train going to Turkey, for a few rubles for some mobsters. If America is convoluted, while you have that disarray, what happened back in the Bolshevik Revolution in the first place in the Soviet Union? The country went into some level of chaos, and when it came out the other side, it wasn't the good guys that people thought they were getting to get rid of the czar. It was an even worse crowd that was managing the chaos in the first place. These people that want to come save America from COVID, they want the chaos because they have a plan. The plan is they're going to destroy America because they want to build a global empire, and we're in the way. And if you got a leader that doesn't want to buy into this whole global thing, remember, Trump wasn't going along with all that green shit. And he wasn't going along with pulling the oil in from all over the world and keeping all those monsters happy in Saudi Arabia, the way they treat their women and kids. The slave owners in Qatar, that are buying and selling little kids. The people that are running the slave markets in Tripoli after Hillary laughed because Gaddafi, we came, we saw, he died. Okay, so then we opened up the slave bazaars in Tripoli again. Gaddafi didn't have slave bazaars.
Nope.
He stopped them. Okay, you can be mad at Gaddafi, but excuse me, no children being sold in downtown Tripoli. They are now. They are now. They are now. Your government made that happen. So, at this moment in time, Michael, I'm asking you, you've been around people, you've seen the stuff, you've been there, security details, you've seen how things work. Is there enough evidence for you yet that Biden is not being acknowledged readily, consistently to the world, let alone here in the United States, let alone to the American people, let alone, the media and everything else, let alone to the dog catcher, that he is actually functionally commander-in-chief, even if in word and deed even, they're acknowledging him as president. Do you think they're acknowledging him as commander-in-chief?
Absolutely not. And outright disrespecting him, in fact. And that's a signal. So I've been trying, I've masterfully done Juan again. I've been trying to put this out in a way that I can. But on our little break where you're getting your video back up line, I talked about how I know things on a very deep level, from 35 years of background, being an operator and being on the other side, actually putting operations together in the intel side and so forth. Stuff on a far, far deeper level, and it just absolutely blows me away, because with that, deeper level of knowledge, you're able to present something like this masterfully. So outstandingly done.
Well, let me ask you this. So if we're in a situation where a faction of the military has not relinquished the ground to him as commander-in-chief, and I got these huge bets out there, and I'm I might have to use part of my car money to pay off all these bets. I might have to sell one of the Bentleys or something. So let me ask you this. I gotta, you think I need to sell one of the Bentley convertibles? Should I start paying off these bets, or do you think I might actually be found to have been exactly right that, first of all, President Trump is still President Trump. He will be President Trump as long as he lives. When he's gone, we will remember him always as President Trump, no matter what Nancy or any of the other fucked up mental cases of following her and the rest of them think. He's President of the United States. And by the way, they never impeached him, except functionally, he wasn't impeached where he's taken out of office. They did their little scam, and but it was based on lying evidence. So screw them all. So then the second question is, come April 1st, I said it on your show. Anybody that voted for the Democratic candidate and that later became Biden, I said this for over a year before the election. Right. In my bets, I said President Trump will still be president come April 1st. Well, he's still a president. And Biden, anybody that voted for Biden would be the fool. Now, I will yield ground and say that functionally, he wasn't recognized as president currently by Congress and the courts. But here's the sticky wicket. On some specific date, just prior to April 1st, did a section of the military, as a result of their investigation, which wasn't going to take years, took a specific period of time, and at the conclusion of that period of a certain number of weeks, did 45 at the proper 45 point, get read in on what exactly happened, and then we defer to you. And what's the sequence? Nothing must be done publicly. There's no requirement that if the military determines that a Manchurian candidate has been placed in position of authority or something's happened in the government, when they decide who the lawful commander-in-chief, the person who is the elected representative of the American people, when they decide who that actually is, and they advise that person and read them in and swear them in as commander-in-chief, recognizing their authority as commander-in-chief, is there any requirement that the public be made aware of what's occurred? No.
No.
The reason is because there's an ongoing potential threat. The reality is the president is recognized as the commander-in-chief. Then he is read in. Here's what we found. Here's what we found happened. Here's the evidence we have right now. Here's the evidence of who was involved, the nation states, the individuals, the treasonous traitors, the mechanisms. Then here's what's still in play. Here's where we're still vulnerable. Here's the rest of what we know of what the plans were to complete the takedown of America. And then the military does exactly what it's supposed to do. The generals say, and now, Mr. Commander-in-Chief, the elected representative of the people constitutionally, what do you want us to do next? The Commander-in-Chief directs the next actions. The Commander-in-Chief makes those final decisions. And what would be the objective? Continuing to protect the Constitution, the contract between the American people and their government, and the Republic, the nation of states. And then, once you've protected America, you got to keep the economy going. You can't crash the economy. You'll kill millions. You don't know what the other threats are. Jacob, do you remember over in Los Angeles on Wilshire Boulevard, February 2nd, 2018, I believe it was, we had military helicopters came in, guys, special forces rappel out of the helicopters on top of a building, and then they go inside, blow concussion grenades. Fortunately, a couple of the windows were open, let some of the pressure out so it didn't, blow anybody's eardrums out.
Mm-hmm.
And then blow the windows out. Technically, they went glass everywhere. And then they took out two. They're really a nest bag. They're like a popcorn, Jiffy Pop popcorn bag. They're designed to help contain a small explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it was a full-on large nuke, it would at least limit it a little bit. And we stretch this same material over all of our plants where we make the weapons to, if something happens, it lowers the radius where the material may get spread out and around. So they pulled out two nest bags, one with the radiological, one with the biological, put them in helicopters with their teams and went different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the troops that were there, they didn't close down the streets. They didn't tell anybody they were coming. They made no preparations in the area. Yeah, guys out there having a freaking beer fest in their porch on their
Mm-hmm.
condo next door, and they're taking pictures with their cell phones. You got people in their cars down the street taking pictures with their cell phone. Why? Because it wasn't a training exercise. Oh no, but it was on the local news. It was a training exercise. They said so on Channel 5. Oh, really? Okay. Well, it wasn't. And you're an idiot. No activity of that type using military forces can be used in a civilian area like that, in a training thing, unless the president personally signs off on it. Remember, we lost a chopper. They're supposedly picking up Osama bin Laden. What if one of the choppers had gone awry? There'd been a miscalculation and it careened off and went into one of those buildings full of people on Wilshire Boulevard? You think Trump wouldn't have been ran out of office, instantly because of, why would you do that when you got training bases just for that purpose? That wasn't a training exercise. And by the way, at the same time that happened, where the real training exercise was at, that everybody had been told was a training exercise, that this was supposedly part of, over at Long Beach Harbor. What happened at the same time? We had one of the largest drug busts in world history.
Wow.
Right there while we're doing a training exercise. Okay, well, we had all our guys there, just like the Russians were doing a training exercise over there in Ukraine. By the way, when that STRATCOM communication came out saying that don't expect a linear response, that was a warning to Putin and them commies, get your ass back.
Mm-hmm.
And within hours, they began withdrawing those troops, but quick. Don't let the screen door hit you on the ass on the way out. They moved those guys back because they got the warning, you're not going to play with us and we're not screwing around. And why was that? Because the guys at the top were not going to be sitting on their hands while we yielded ground there, while we're taking care of problems here inside the country.
Yep.
We are not decapitated. And that was a command level decision to make that warning. If we're not commanding all the forces, because just like you saw and what you heard about, there's a little disagreement in the general staff. Well, where it counts, further up the ladder, maybe there isn't as much disagreement as you think. But over there in Long Beach Harbor, when they were supposedly doing that training exercise that wasn't a training exercise, that was cover for what they were really going to do, they went out there, did the largest drug bust in U.S. history, one of the largest in U.S. history, one of the largest in world history. And in there, they got enough fentanyl to kill every human being in Mexico, America, and Canada twice. We are under attack on multiple fronts. It's not just the vote fraud. That was just one component of a very broad attack on America. Just like what we did with the 𝐚𝐫𝐭𝐢𝐜 Russians back when we took out the Soviet Union.
So it's beautiful when I heard you talk about this before, that mission, because when I saw it, I had trained for that and had done training like that. So when I saw the Tier 1 guys, SEAL Team 6 level guys, doing that mission, I was like, That's real. That's the real deal. I don't know what these guys got going on, but that's real. And then I heard later from you, what actually went down. So that's just the kind of level, of reveal that you have. So people that are
Well,
getting
and by
this,
the way,
amazing, beautiful.
Think COVID, but
Right.
2 years sooner. What
Yeah.
would have happened had a biological been released there? How would it have been released? There's a bus tunnel that goes underneath Wilshire Boulevard. That's right where the beginning of the bus tunnel is. It services all the hotels down the street for all of the staff that work at those hotels, the people come and go to all their jobs in those buildings there. So if you released a biological weapon and infected people going to work along there, they'd have gone into all those hotels, maybe have 2, 3, 5, 10 days. And all those people go get on airplanes that are staying at those hotels. I think there's 6 of them down the street there. And they go back, whatever country they're coming from, because there's a lot of international travel on that specific group there. And then on top of that, after you've got everybody infected, well, what's going to happen? All of your people are going to show up that are looking to see if, there's some kind of infection, CDC stuff, okay, to see what's going on. What's one of the risks you have when you go in where there's been a terrorist act or a bomber? The second one. They get all of your rescue people in there. You get all your stuff, and then they blow the real one up. That's the big one.
Cover all the evidence.
Okay,
absolutely.
And they take all your first tier personnel out. So the long and short of it is, you're looking for a biological. What happens next? They were scheduled to demolish that building 2 weeks after the guys landed there and took whatever out of there. It might have been ready to go a day or 2 or 5 later. Maybe it wasn't going the next day. And then as soon as that biological's out there, they're tearing down the building. All the trucks were going to show up and run right through the middle of town with all the concrete dust and debris and everything, taking it out to the landfill, driving right through the middle of LA. And what was going to be in there? Radiological. And by the way, what happens now? You thought you were only here for a biological. Now you got a radiological.
Jeez.
And it's covering the whole thing. You could have even detonated small something and spread it all over the area. Now nobody's coming in to look for it, because have you seen how hard it is to work in a hot zone with the suits and everything you have to do, and you're trying to do some forensic thing and figure out who was behind this? Okay. And by the way, when that all happened, first of all, it was the Guatemalan Cultural Center. But also that was the same week that El Chapo was convicted out of Mexico there. And then also the, what's his name? Altieri, whatever his name was, from an ex-IBM, Keith Raniere. And the deal with him was you had all of this political connection to the Salinas family down in Mexico. And the child trafficking, the young girls and all that related to ex-IBM and the older women, the Hollywood stars, all of that were part of that whole Hollywood component. And then you had El Chapo, which, by the way, the drugs coming up through Mexico and that whole crowd, who was facilitating that? Who's bringing in the guns and even the vehicles? Those are all out of China. China's using the drug cartels out of Mexico like a foreign legion against America. And so El Chapo, he's rolling over and stuff. Where do you think they got the information about what was coming in and how with those ships? And then at the exact same time, the stuff at the Guatemalan Cultural Center. So at the end of the day, they thought they got away with something. Hey, let me ask you this. If they didn't get away with it there, maybe we had people that were talking. And how long did it go? Maybe even though we had to play the game to a certain point just to find out the rest of what we might not know. You think it's possible that we still have some human intel people and some computer guys that ride surfboards that know enough to figure out how this stolen vote happened? Can bring that evidence out. And by the way, if the people in your audience thought that these fucking piece of shit assholes who think that the election from 2020 is over and we're on to 2022 and 24, and that's all there is to it, and we're never going back. I'm here to tell you, it ain't over yet, baby.
Oh,
It
yeah,
ain't over yet.
Oh. See the reveal
okay.
comment. It's beautiful.
Okay, so I got to tell you. Okay, so yesterday, I let out for sale second edition of my book. You know, The Kid by the Side of the Road. The first edition was the Victory edition, and you know, well, Trump didn't win. He didn't. Well, we'll see how that goes. So let me just pop this over here. We got that right there. Okay, I see. That was you doing it, not me. So here's what the deal is. Yesterday, I put out my second edition, which is the same story, information stuff that was in the first edition, but a few different pictures from some of the fun stuff, including the call makes for perfect day and some other stuff. But it's the inaugural edition. Now, how would I have the audacity to call the second edition of my book the inaugural edition? And the first edition had a picture of President Trump on the back. The second edition is kind of, you know, you wonder what's going on, because the second edition has a picture of Melania on the back, and she is beautiful. And I'm glad you're showing it there. Here's the one thing that's kind of interesting. That dress that Melania is wearing, that's the dress she wore when she got off of Air Force One on January 20th, while President Trump, was still president, while she was still the first lady, because they didn't stay in Washington, D.C. for the Biden inauguration ceremony and watch him stand on the Bible, right? They went to Mar-a-Lago. They didn't participate in that little charade. And she wore this dress. Now, when ships are at sea and they need to communicate, you know, going back to days before they even had wire, you know, and wireless communication, things like that. Ships at sea, they use flags to send messages back and forth between the ships. And the flags individually and the combination of flags will tell the other crew, the other ship, what they wanted to know and communicate it back up the line to the, you know, fleet commander. So Melania has been the flagpole, if you will, in these communications. And so almost invariably, whatever she wears is a message for that moment in history to everybody that's watching. So here we are on this incredible day. Think of the magnitude of the moment. It's Trump's last day in office, and he's not president anymore. Well, some people's opinion. So when she's making a statement, flying the flag, telling you everything, Michael, you've got the book. I signed one for you. And if you look, every single page in the book, in the lower right-hand or left-hand corner is the page number. And it's in orange. And above that number, every single page has a cube. And in fact, the last words in the book relate to election 2020 equals mega cubed over corn. E equals M3 square, M3 or squared over C. Einstein had the equation E equals MC squared. This is equals MC cubed. That's the election 2020. And that's what I said in the book. And that was my dream. That was all of this stuff that I talked about. Even the color, when they were doing the book, printing it, and it's out being foiled right now. Everywhere that you see orange around Melania and everywhere that's orange on the book has a beautiful reflective foil applied to it. It's beautiful, spectacular. And those will be done here in just a couple of days, and those books will start going out. And so Melania, as the last public act, as the official FLOTUS with President Trump, climbs off the plane wearing that dress with the exact color cubes, shapes, over and over and over, saying exactly what I said in my whole book. Election 2020 equals mega over corn cubed. And the corn is all these farm products, CIA, FBI. They have the farm where they train guys. And these people have been training and working against America. Brennan, Comey, treasonous traitors going over there and working with the Brits, MI6, to overturn our election. Because that's where it all started from. Go back to 2016. What happened with the dossier? Creamer out of McCain's office, Maricopa County. What did they do? They were coordinating their actions to stop Trump, the candidate, from winning the election with this lying, thieving, pissant dossier full of lies, proven to be lies over and over, because it's the fucking Brits, MI5 and MI6 working with treasonous traitors here in America.
Exactly.
To overturn the will of the people, the contract with the people, the Constitution of the United States, the contract with the American people to have a representative government that has authority over them. But how can it be representative if they steal the vote with lies, when they put documents and players and everything in there that's lying? And now you're not getting a person that's representative of the American people in office. You're getting their scamming group, putting their puppet in play to do their will against America, their way. Not a representative of the American people. That's what's going on here. And so our military is in the middle of another revolutionary war with the fucking Brits. And by the way, just like George Washington had one of his most trusted generals, many said it was his most trusted general, betrayed him and went over to the Brit side. Okay. And so what do we have? Do we have some generals running America that, you know, are we going to have some traitors here? Are we going to find that we had people in office in our government that were sold out to these globalists overseas to run America? President Trump sent a flag signal to the citizens of America. This isn't over. Election 2020 is still in play. Election 2020 equals mega cubed over corn. And thank God he ran that flag up the mast. Those of us that are watching saw it. This isn't over. Enjoy the show. 5 by 5.
Masterfully done. So, you know, a lot of people have been confused, and I've been trying to help them, you know, see that the military is still in charge and the military is still operational. So this is unprecedented what you did today. So I think people are going to come back to this and look at this over and over again. Share this far and wide. Now your links that I kind of revealed there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have those in the description box, and also over on Rumble and BitChute.
Well, let me just mention too, the Rumble. That's the best place to go watch the movie, called The Makings for a Perfect Day. If you got people that haven't seen that, I think it's amazing. Jennifer Mack did this just amazing job on that movie, and people will just never know how hard she worked on that. It was the editing. I don't know anybody else that could have done it. I spoke during it, but the real mastery there was the way she pulled all those pieces together. So we all were a debt. And I mean, I get people telling me all the time, I've watched it 5, 6, 10 times. I just love listening to music, you know. So she did a great job over there.
Yeah, she is so beautiful. Such a sweet and gentle soul too. Very nice.
Yeah. And then on the book, we did have some mischief that was played in the first one. We've covered, I think, everybody's got their book. There's still probably several dozen that we're trying to get sorted out. And but I've got first editions that I held back aside, make sure I got every single person got their book. That's why I held off on the second edition until we felt we had it solved. And we have now every order goes out with the tracking code. So we can track it all the way through till it gets right in that person's hands. So I appreciate everybody that fought through that with us, and we got that solved. And they actually had to create a new way of doing it for our particular thing. And so once they had that in place, it was totally locked in. And these will go out very quickly. The first of them will ship in just about 5 days. As soon as they come back from where they're having this foil put on them. And there was people who were making copies on the Xeroxes and sending them out, and you know, so they're originals, and they were all over online, and which is fine. I mean, it's, you know, it's a compliment that they want to do that, but be a little more difficult with these because they're have this on it. And then the next book, we're just working now on the rest of that, and it's all new content. And the next one will be out shortly to replace this one, and that's The Storm. Nice.
No, I sat by and had dinner with a guy that works with you on that, and he is amazing. You guys are quite a team together. Oh. Yeah,
he's very good. If I didn't have a good editor, man, it would not be the same as what we got.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he did amazing work. He was a real gift, literally from God, as far as I'm concerned. There's a, you know, we're on a divine mission. You and I, that's one of the things. People think this is all just, you know, us having fun or whatever. Look, the whole world's on the line here. Everything's at stake. In fact, I'm picking up Jim Caviezel here in a couple of days.
Nice.
And
great man.
We're in this last phase. We're trying to lock in our marketing money for the movie The Sound of Freedom that you came down to Vegas and watched with a lot of the other influencers. And I'm hoping to have that. No, that was it's an amazing movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reality is we got a whole world. You know, there's more slavery in the world today than ever before in human history. Now, part of that's because we have a bigger population, but there's this component that's just hard to get your mind around, that there's more slavery today than ever before in human history. But think about it. There in Libya, they weren't having slave bazaars for all the way from 67 until just a few years ago in 2013. And all of a sudden, as soon as Gaddafi's out, I mean, literally he's out, and the crowd that comes in, this Muslim Brotherhood crowd, and they got slave bazaars going, and they're stealing kids all over North Africa, shipping them up to Qatar and to other places, kids coming out of Asia, all over South America, and they're being traded like trading cards and worse. And so here in our lifetime, people talk, you know, the first, you know, Revolutionary War with England, that didn't really quite go away. They were in there doing mischief with us all the way up through when we had the Civil War, and it was over, you know, slavery in part. It was really a banking thing primarily, and getting the states and commerce and all that thing with the fucking Brits again, you know, 1812 war and on and on. They've been doing mischief all along, and they're doing it again.
Oh, yeah.
And so even here now, here we're having a similar issue. We thought we had slavery, you know, taken care of. Well, maybe it was black and white then, although, you know, by the way, the largest slave owner in South Carolina was black coming into the Civil War. I spent time with one of his great grandsons here the other day. He's a great guy. and he's got and he's a Confederate, and actually a very interesting guy, got a great history. It isn't necessarily even a race issue at any level. It's not a black-white thing. There's a lot of whites that were slaves back at the time of Civil War. People want to be in denial of that, not just here in America, but all over the world. But this era now, it's even beyond just human slavery. It's in large measure, it's children. And that's, there's small hearts, small hands praying moment to moment every day, please God, please.
Yeah.
And if you're not touched by that, if you don't hear that, if you can't hear that, if your heart's that hard that you can allow slavery in our generation, especially these small children, and worse, then, maybe there isn't a place for you in this world. We cannot tolerate that this goes on in our lifetime, in our world. God gave this world to Adam and his seed, and it's ours. And we are supposed to manage it, to do with it according to, this divine understanding that we have, this divine contract. And to, when Adam was in the garden, he wasn't there just walking around eating the fruit, whatever's going on. No, he was supposed to tend the garden, to manicure the garden, to grow the garden, to make it, ornament, to give it order. It wasn't just chaotic. He was there as the groundskeeper. And we're still the groundskeeper on this planet ourselves. And in corners of this planet, the horrors are beyond comprehension. And where the most child pornography and trafficking is in the whole world is right here in America.
Right in America, yeah.
So Jim and I are on a mission. It's a mission from God to get this done in this particular phase that we have in the movie, get it out for fall release, get the second movie in production. The script's nearly done, and it's even more compelling than this one. And get it out there in the general audiences, and then folks like you and some of the other hosts like that have seen it can talk authoritatively, and we get this thing under control. So, it's we live in an amazing moment because people for generations, eons, have prayed to be in a time when you could get some of this evil off the planet and, stop it. And we have the means, the mechanisms. We're not at the mercy of these evil people.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones with the power. And they can try to cook the vote and cook the way we do things and convince people electronically with all their electronic frauds that they're in control. But the reality is there's more of us by many orders of magnitude than there are of them.
Absolutely.
Or their brainwashed masses. We're going to go get our country back. We're going to get our country sorted out, our own house in order, and then we're going out and help the rest of the world, not to be the rest of the world's masters, but to be the rest of the world's brothers. We're not our brother's keeper. We're our brother's brother, and we're going to do it, and that's the way it is, and they're not stopping us.
That's beautiful. And that's a great way to end it. You always put out some great information. I could talk on and on. I have so many things that I like to go into, but your time, you put out the perfect thing for the military. I love that you come in because I was a former military guy, and that's like use my platform, and I love that to really reach the military guys. Hopefully those guys, maybe there's few still, I never know, they're still on the fence. They see this and it's a done deal. And everyone else that's still doubting, you should never doubt after seeing